And we're live. Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast number 65. This is the one about Jeet Kune Do and the art of dissolving, or did I call it blending and dissolving? Anyhow, it's the one about that mix of stuff. So as you guys are logging in, you know the deal. Be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, and also hit the like button. Feel free to continue hitting the like button as we progress, and that way Facebook will give us some algorithmic relevance, right? And if you like something that you hear, if you think something that I say is particularly insightful, continue to hit the like button. All right, so the origin story for today's broadcast title. So I recently posted a Kali video, and somebody mentioned that you don't see too much of that kind of old school training. And so I was thinking about old school training methods or old school material, what have you. And that got me thinking of this handout that Sifu Dan had given us a long time ago. And well, I'll use the four-part version. So the four-part version was: 1, learn the technique; 2, practice the technique; 3, functionalize the technique; and then number 4 was to dissolve the technique. So that's kind of where I got the idea for today's title. So let's talk about dissolving. Essentially 2 things in JKD that need to be dissolved: the technique, as we just mentioned, and then the ego. So let's deal with the technical side first, because that might be easier, and who knows, we might find some across the board consensus right on the technical side. So here's the question, and feel free, guys, to give me an answer to this. Are there specific training guidelines that govern how we approach what we're doing in JKD? Okay. Hey, Hector. So guys, remember, I'm pretty sure Hector is out of, shoot, now I'm forgetting. I shouldn't say I'm pretty sure, right? But if you guys just say where you're logging in from. Right. So are there specific guiding principles that govern how we should train Jeet Kune Do? I ask this because, as we all know, it might depend on to which JKD camp you pose the question, right? And I like to say it's just like if you ask representatives from different political parties how best should they serve the public, then you might get different answers. And then similarly, same thing with religions. If we ask about how best to worship God, you might get different answers, even though 3 of the major religions all have the same original patriarch, right? So for the sake of argument, let's agree that 1, economy of motion is an important guiding principle in JKD, and kind of included in that principle is the use of efficient footwork, aka mobility, and also the preservation of center line. All right, so economy of motion, mobility or efficient footwork, and preservation of center line. All these require the use of a fighting position that will assist in facilitating these principles, right? So let's say that Bruce Lee determined that you can't really use the traditional or classical front stance, or the back stance, or the cat stance, or even the traditional classical Wing Chun position, because what he was seeking to develop is, as he put it, a position which is found to give the maximum ease and relaxation, combined with smoothness of movement at all times, right? That's a direct quote from Commentaries on the Martial Way. So Bruce Lee developed the Baizhong, or the ready position, or the on guard position. I'm laughing at Sifu Nick's comment, right? Right? Don't distract me, man. Right? So Bruce Lee developed the Baizhong, or the ready position, following 3 characteristics of the position of readiness, right? In the human body, which are bent knees, a trunk or upper body which is inclined forward, and then a rear heel which is carried in a flexed position, right? Like the rear heel being raised, right? So none of those are found in those stances we just mentioned. They're not found in the back stance, the cat stance, the front stance, none of that stuff. So Bruce Lee needed to find something, and when you think about it, those characteristics of upper body inclined forward, rear heel flexed, right, bent knees are found in the Thai boxing position to a certain degree, and in the Western boxing position to a certain degree. So maybe we can blend those positions into our ultimate on-guard position. And if we want to retain the Pak Sao and the Lap Sao and the Bong Sao of Wing Chun, can we pull those off while in this new on-guard position? So if the answer to all of this is yes, then I venture to say it's pretty easy then to blend Wing Chun and boxing and Muay Thai in this specific example of fighting position, right? So now let's talk about efficient footwork and preservation of centerline, right? So with its emphasis on angulation, Kali's footwork might appear to be moving off centerline, but I think that's a fallacy, because when I move, right? So when I angle in Kali, my lead foot moves away from centerline, but my rear foot essentially stays on centerline, right? So I'm not real. So if you think, so listen to what I just said, right? The lead foot moves away from centerline, and the rear foot essentially stays on centerline. So I'm not moving off centerline at all. I'm still there. And then when I hit back towards centerline anyhow. So I've not lost anything. But on the surface, you go, oh, well, Kali is always angling away and moving away and female triangle this and whatever. That's not preserving centerline. See, Sifu Dan explained it once this way, right? So if you think about it, Wing Chun preserves centerline like this, and then forces the opponent to come around. And while the opponent is busy coming around, Wing Chun just goes straight ahead, right? Whereas Kali gives up centerline and invites the opponent to come straight in. And then when the opponent comes straight in, Kali will angle off and hit back towards centerline. So have you really given up centerline in that method? And right, you see where I'm going with this? Because again, what does it do? It gives us that essential quality in JKD, which is the yin yang, right? Where things are not opposites, they're actually the complementary halves of a whole. So you have one preserving centerline and forcing the opponents to go around, and then the other approach is to appear to open up centerline and invite the opponent straight in, and then you go off on an angle. So you're ending up at the same point, but you might have gotten there two different ways, right? So we have a blended approach on the issue of footwork, and we have a blended approach on the idea of the preservation of centerline. I was going to talk about the long arc and the short arc swing of the Kali stick and how that can add to your punching, but we'll leave that for another time, right? Okay, so now on to the blending and the dissolving of the ego. Okay, so hang tight, right? Here's a direct quote. The martial arts are ultimately self-knowledge. A punch or a kick is not to knock the hell out of the guy in front of you, but to knock the hell out of your own ego, out of your fear or your hang-ups, right? So this is absolutely important because very often ego can get in our ways, right? So many times when we think of ego, we think of somebody who is all puffed up with his inflated sense of self, right? A proud person, so to speak, an egotist. On the other hand, there's the egoist, which, as I understand it, is somebody who is also full of himself, but it is turned inwardly and it is used to better himself, not so much as externally for showing off. So the difference between an egotist and an egoist, right? Now, we talked about somebody who is proud, right? And I am no great religionist, but I'm going to use some biblical teachings to explain this, because truth is truth no matter where it comes from. And JKD, correct me if I'm wrong, is all about seeking truth, right? So it's fashionable to be all about pride. We've got Latin pride, gay pride, national pride, ethnic pride, etc., etc., etc. But what people seem to forget is that pride is listed as one of the 7 deadly sins. So, to paraphrase Neville Goddard, and you guys can look him up if you want, the drama of life is a psychological one, and the drama in life is brought about by your attitudes rather than by your actions. Get it? The drama in your life is brought about by your attitudes, perhaps almost as much, or maybe a little bit more, than by your actions. So as Neville says, the meek men of the Gospels are not the proverbial poor, groveling doormats, as a meek man is generally conceived to be. Instead, they are the men of the world who, while poor and unproven, dare to assume wealth and greatness. The meek men of the Gospels are not the proverbial poor, groveling doormats, as a meek man is generally conceived to be, but instead are the men of the world who, while poor and unproven, dare to assume wealth and greatness. Now, as far as I understand, Bruce Lee was not swimming in money at the time of the Big Boss, and he was not as proven a Hong Kong kung fu star as, say, even a Jimmy Wang Yu or a David Chang or one of those guys, right? So if you understand that, you'll immediately see this idea of being a meek man reflected in Bruce Lee's written out what? Definite chief aim, as well as his refusal to portray, the typical Chinese role with the pigtail bouncing around, chop chop with the eye slant and what have you, right? In the original biblical text, the word translated meek from the Aramaic into the English means tamed, as a wild animal that is tamed. So a meek man is actually somebody who is so self-disciplined that he sees only the finest and thinks only the best, right? So I'll give you one more quote from Neville. He says, in truth, a meek man is one who is in complete control of his moods, and they are the highest, referring to the moods, they are the highest. For he who desires to walk with the highest must keep a high mood. So we rise to a higher level of consciousness, not because we have curbed our passions, but because we have cultivated our virtues. So imagine if instead of all these pride parades, what we had instead were virtue parades. So instead we have national virtue, ethnic virtue, gay virtue, whatever. But instead of pride, we're talking instead about virtue. That might change the whole thing. Okay? All right. I hope this wasn't, again, too esoteric for you guys. Because I know that sometimes if we're talking JKD, people just want to deal with the technical side and argue about who really's got Jeet Kune Do and who doesn't really got it, right? It's almost as if they're afraid to deal with the internalities of Jeet Kune Do because they might not be too comfortable with what they find there, right? So that's it for today. Feel free to share, like, and comment, ask me questions. Thanks for everybody who, I didn't have time to go through the scroll, but thanks for everybody who showed up. Sifu Nick, Kurt, Sifu Randy, Will, I forget who else came on. Sign up for notifications for when we go live on Facebook and when we post the new videos on the YouTube channels and for the broadcast and the dialogues. Also, follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, right? You'll see some of my other writings, some more, some non-martial art writings. And then on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. Yeah, it's all convoluted. Twitter at Dwight Woods, Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. Quick heads up, the I Love Jeet Kune Do Quick Skills Series, still available at ilovejeetkunዶ.com. Coming up tonight at 6 p.m. So if you guys can meet me back here in 3 hours, I'll be doing Dialogues episode with Robert Parmakovsky in Australia. So we had to change things around a little bit. And then we will change things around again on Friday, right? Let me make sure I got this right. And I'm not sure if we'll be live or if it'll just be me and my guest, but it's Bay Logan in Hong Kong who wrote the, I figured you would know Robert Sifu Nick. So Robert Parmakovsky in Australia tonight, live on Facebook, and possibly Friday at 7 p.m. live with Bay Logan in Hong Kong. But if that doesn't work out live, then we will do. I'll post. Bay and I will do it on Zoom, and then I'll post it for you guys on Saturday on Facebook and the YouTube. Right. So I think that's it. Oh yeah, check out jkdrebel.com. We will be revamping that that website, but feel free to make a purchase as of right now. All proceeds go towards upgrading what we offer here on the shows. And I will see you, some of you, I guess, tonight at 6 p.m. for the JKD Dialogues, and then some of you on Friday if we do it live, and I'll see you back here next week, same time, for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Oh, today's a blue and navy blue day, but I couldn't find my Bruce Lee shirt, so I'm rocking an old school Inasano Instructor Association shirt. All right, guys, have a good one.